and you're going to learn more about who you are and take it all on and build your identity and stand in your truth. And don't think that that's permanent. Your truth can change, your
Yeah.
identity can change and evolve and grow, and it will, because that's what life is about. Don't stay 17.
Yeah.
You know, as you grow, add more to who you are and just build this solid, unshakable identity that when you're told no, it doesn't say anything about who you are. It might say something about what you need to do to change.
Have you ever wondered what it takes to transform life's rejections and how to move beyond mediocrity into mastery? Today, I'm honored to welcome Sensei Ron Thomas, known worldwide as Bobby Brown, from the legendary Karate Kid films and the hit series Cobra Kai. Ron's journey goes far beyond the All-Valley Championships. As a 6th-degree black belt, 2-time world champion, motivational speaker, and author of his newest book, releasing December 4th, The Hidden Life Lessons of Mr. Miyagi. From his Hollywood highs and lows to teaching the principles of discipline and resilience, Ron embodies the mantra, Cobra Kai never dies. Ron's ability to get hit and not be afraid to get back up is a lesson we can all apply to all of our lives. His wisdom on navigating rejection, staying true to yourself, being an amazing dad, and mastering life, both on and off the mat, is nothing short of inspiring. Get ready to channel your inner champion and learn to bring your A game with Sensei Ron Thomas as he shares how to live a life worthy of an All-Valley title on Navigating No. Sensei Ron, thank you so much for coming on with us today and being a part of Navigating No. I have looked forward to our interview for several weeks, and you've made my day, honestly, that much better to come on. So, because I'm a huge fan, and everything that you do, I follow, and you and I lead these parallel lives. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. So thank you for having me.
Wow. Well, if the audience doesn't know who you are, I don't know what they've been missing their entire lives. But growing up, I was born in '77, and Karate Kid and the franchise that it's become has just become so much for me, and it meant so much to me. And I have a feeling that if our audience doesn't know who you are, I would love this opportunity. I want you to throw out there like who you are and kind of how you got into where you are now and what that journey basically looked like. If you could take that elevator pitch moment.
Oh, come on, man. Leave me alone. I've had enough. Of course, it's leave him alone. He's had enough. That's one of my lines from the Karate Kid. I played Bobby Brown, of course, and now evolved to Pastor Bobby Brown on the series Cobra Kai. And I've been an actor for a very long time. I started acting when I was 11 years old. Even more to the point of some of the conversation we'll have today about navigating no. It goes all the way, my mindset stuff goes all the way back to when I was 3 years old and was a competitive swimmer and thought I was going to make the Olympics, or I was at least hoping, it was one of my big dreams, training for the Olympics. And I was a state champion and a butterflyer. I love butterfly but then at some point I stopped growing, at 5'8", I stopped growing, and people like Michael Phelps kept going,
Sure.
He's got a wingspan of 6'7", I think, from tip to tip, and wears a size 14 foot, so he's wearing flippers wherever he goes. So, at 5'8", you can't compete against those guys.
Too bad you can't wear those base stealing gloves that they have now in the MLB. Where they try to get that distance and they have that extra 3 inches.
Oh yeah, no, we wore all that stuff to train because it builds your, competitive muscles. But, competing in sports all my life, whether it's, martial arts or whether it was swimming or competitive golf. I was a competitive golfer, snow skiing. I grew up in Reno, Nevada. I love sports. I love athletics. I love the outdoors. But the mindset that comes with it and the things you learn along the way about how important it is. Mindset is really, really important. And that kind of linked into, becoming an actor, because if you don't have a proper mindset in Hollywood, talk about navigating no.
Absolutely.
Move to Hollywood and try being an actor. You're going to get no every day. So, so mindset is critical, and it just kind of has become my backstory. to and a kind of a through line to everything that I've done in my life. And I've always had big dreams, big dreamer, and
Did you
I,
know that you wanted to get into acting right away from the swimming mentality? I mean, Reno and LA, for example, that's a distance, but did you just pick up and go, or did you have an agent out of Reno prior to moving over?
I had an agent out of Reno. One of the relatives of the Harrah's Club in Reno was an actor, and I started acting in Reno. I started doing theater, and of
Mhm.
course, I don't know. Being an only child, maybe I just loved all the attention. So,
So am I.
put myself in
Same
the stage,
story.
yeah, put the spotlight on me. Um, it was all good, and then, but I fell in love with acting, and I was also very in love with golf. So it was coming out of high school. I didn't know which way I wanted to go really.
Mhm.
Uh, is it golf? Do I try that? I don't know why I picked two of the toughest, careers to be
Industries.
involved in the world.
Right.
But there you have it. But I ultimately moved to LA and started pursuing acting and started working right away. Actually, so
And you
it's
got right into the Conan series, like the live action with the Conan series. And
yeah.
how old were you then?
Conan must have been. Let me think now. That's a good question. 20, 19 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 20, because I went to 2 years at University of Nevada, Reno. So I think I moved down here. I got into the Conan show around 20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and did some commercials and stuff before that. And did a couple movies before that as well. Before
So
I
you were
actually moved
you
to
were
LA.
dabbling with it, and you were getting lucky. You were getting some things, but you didn't have a major break yet, right?
I hadn't had a major break. No, I mean Karate Kid could have been a major break for me, but you got to have the right people around you too. So I did not have
Sure.
the right people around me when that film broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my own manager who brought me from Reno to LA. He told me the movie doesn't have an audience; it's not going to go anywhere. So he never came to the set. He never, did any networking. Never met John Avildsen or Jerry Weintraub. Academy Award winning producers and
Yeah.
directors. The people that were powerhouses that were on behind the scenes of the Karate Kid. He didn't even bother coming because the movie didn't have an audience. It wasn't going to go anywhere.
So
But
it was
here
a
we are.
waste of his time. Yeah, and look where we are now. Did you
Unbelievable.
when you were filming it, did you kind of move that direction? I mean, the opportunity for you to network there as an actor, I know that when you're on set, I mean, you can talk and connect with people too, and with the director, or with the producer, and the writers and things. And so it's like you can make those connections too. Did you do that, or were you at such a young age that you were like, I don't really understand that, and you were just having fun?
Bingo. Yeah, I was kind of like at the young age where I'll just leave that stuff up to my agent, my manager. I mean, they're the ones supposed to get me the auditions, and I didn't really understand how important networking is in Hollywood, as it
Oh, and
is in any industry, really.
absolutely. I think that's a huge point to make, is the fact that it's like the world doesn't owe us anything, right? It's like you kind of have to open your own doors, and you
Yeah,
can't suggest that somebody is going to do it for you all the time. And so it's interesting because being there, I can see you like enjoying the time, and you're on a high, and it's like, whoa. And who wouldn't have a great time with all of the cast? I mean, what an experience to have, and to have that cast and that friendships and the connections for 40 plus years with
yeah.
Sensei Ron. I think that's amazing.
It's been a journey. It's been a blessing. It's a very unique brand um, coming out of Hollywood. It's an iconic movie, and as you kind of hinted to, it's changed lives around the world. Not and the movie not necessarily changing lives, but certainly inspiring people to take martial arts. And it's the martial arts that changes lives. But the movie has had such an impact on people, and it's generational and very unique. I don't can't think of another brand that has done what the Karate Kid has done, and continuing it with Cobra Kai.
Well,
Yeah,
and it's timeless. It is. You and I both have daughters around the same age,
yeah,
and I introduced the Karate Kid to my daughter, and she watched it, and she fell in love with it.
really.
Fell in
Yeah,
love with it, and I was like, I was watching her watching. I was like, oh, what's going to be the good scenes? And she loves the music to it, and it's like every emotion that she was getting, it's, even though it's that old, it's still timeless. And she still had the same reactions that I did when I saw it as a kid too. And I mean, does your daughter have the same experience? Does she know who her dad is, kind of?
Oh yeah, but I'm still just dad. She still sass talks me, and
Yeah.
but she understands. To she's been to events with me and met. She knows a lot of people. She knows Yuji. She knows
Mm-hmm.
Billy, Uncle Billy, and so she's been around. She kind of gets it, but it's kind of like, oh, it's just dad too. So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think she's actually watched the movie all the way through.
We
To be
should
honest.
remedy that. We should have a date night with our kids, and they should be able to watch it.
Yeah, I remember when the first episode that they brought the original Cobras back on Cobra Kai, and we
Mm-hmm.
had the barroom brawl, and she saw me, getting beat up, and not getting beat up, but I was fighting, and I got punched, and it was all this stuff going on, and she started to cry, but she was only 5 at the time, right?
Yeah.
So when she saw it, like, oh yeah, and she couldn't watch the rest of the episode. So
Oh, that's phenomenal. Well, hopefully, yeah, let's get them together. I think that sounds like a good plan,
yeah,
because I think that, and I think the reason it's so timeless are the messages within it, and it's like being able to take those messages and life lessons and apply them in anything in our lives, whether in any industry or with your relationships or with work. And it's that balance. And it's like, it was the right movie at the right time. And it was with the right cast and with the right people.
yeah.
And you're a part of that. You are a part of that. And that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been special for sure. I always say that the stars aligned for the Karate Kid, and I don't just mean the Hollywood stars. I just
Mm-hmm.
something beyond us, bigger than us, kind of put everything together and has carried it forward, because it really has
Mm-hmm.
touched lives and changed lives, really. And I've
Oh,
had
mm-hmm.
comment and that experience of meeting people from around the world who've told me that, and they literally cry. I was over in England doing a Comic-Con and doing a sign and autograph, and I handed it to a guy who was a fellow martial artist. But why was he a martial artist? Because he had seen the Karate Kid when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But when I handed him the photo and he read what I wrote to him, he started crying. He's a grown man
Oh,
crying.
that's awesome.
So that
Mm-hmm.
really it's not hyperbole when people say this movie has changed my life.
And meaning that it has impact. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories really quick. Number one, your hairstyle was amazing in the movie. So
Yeah,
much so that a lot of my older friends had your hairstyle, and they're like, they wanted to be just like you in the movie. And I was like, I just didn't have the hair for that. So
yeah,
and I was a little younger on that side, but I will always remember looking up to my older brothers and such, even though I'm an only child, and having those friends and those mentors that had your hair and they looked up to your hairstyle. So it's kudos to you. You rocked something fierce on that.
that's funny. I don't think I've ever heard that.
There you go. They loved it, and they could break dance. So that was good too. And then the other thing is, you mentioned Yuji Okamoto earlier, and this is interesting because Yuji and I know each other from acting, number one, and number two, we're both living in Seattle, and he and his family live over there and own a restaurant business. And it's interesting because he lived, his restaurant was right next to my dojo, and he
Oh,
came in one night, and his daughter and I knew his wife, she cheerleaded at the college that I went to, and their daughter came in, and it was funny because when he saw me train, he's like, well, why do you train? And I was like, well, because of you, right? Because of
right.
Karate Kid, because of the whole impact that made. And it just, I, like you, and I'm sure you're going to hit on this a little bit, is that I was bullied when I was a kid. And at 8 years old, I was like, my parents did the most amazing thing, and they put me into martial arts. They put me into a judo academy that had Shotokan karate as well. And it was like, there my life blossomed, all because of that one moment. And
Right.
but the inspiration behind me all the time, that's music or whether that's a scene in the movie, I would always play that over and over in my head. And one of my favorite fight scenes is with you at the very beginning when you're competing against the guy and the guy in front of you does the leg tap 3 times and then you leg sweep him underneath. And it's like that tap that your opponent does. I remember doing that to like lead up my opponent. And so those simple things, I used those in Tokyo when I was on the all collegiate team. Right. And it's just like, that's impact, Sensei Ron. And I think that you're a part of that. And how awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree with it. I mean, it is awesome. It's a blessing. It's, you know, like I said, the stars align. I don't know. It was meant to be, but I'm definitely honored to be a part of it for sure.
Well, and how, I have to ask you, what was it like when you started hearing that Cobra Kai was going to be released? And then all of a sudden there was a possibility that you could come out of retirement as your past self and jump back in it. Were you like elated? Like, were you excited? Did your agent call you? Like, what did that process go like?
Well, initially it was coming out and I'm like, we had discussed as among friends, you know, Billy and Tony and Rob Garrison and whoever, Marty Cove, we would discuss the possibilities of bringing, you know, us back and doing something together, and we didn't really know what that was going to be like. And I had the idea of doing Koala Kai, which was all of us having daughters and, you know, and then of course, Marty actually did a commercial that was referenced Koala Kai. I don't know if you remember that. I forgot what it was for.
I thought you were going to say like the sweep the leg video or the music video or like Tosh.0 because you guys did that. And so it's like, I can see you getting traction from little things like that and like, hey, maybe we do have something here.
Yeah, no, we discussed it. And then initially, to your question, I was pissed off because first of all, I'm good friends with Billy Zabka and he never said anything to me, you know, but I understand because he was kept under wraps. And then the first season went by and I'm like, the series is called Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah. You.
Ho over here, you know? And I'm like, what? I haven't heard, I didn't get a call. You know, I'm like, No Mercy stuff came out.
Yeah.
You know? And like, and then, you know, seconds as they were getting into wrapping up the first season and getting into the second season and stuff, then I got a call from the producers and they wanted to talk about Bobby Brown and where they wanted to take him and if I was okay with, you know, and then I'm like, whew, at least you didn't totally forget about me, you know? You know,
that's so awesome.
Yeah. And then of course, showing up on the set, there's synchronicity there as well as, you know, serendipity. I don't know what you would call it. Again, the stars aligning. But showing up on the set with all of these guys I've known, you know, we're good friends. But then, of course, recreating the characters that we had created so long ago together, being in front of the camera, all doing what we love to do was magical. But it was also serendipitous in the fact that it was on Halloween.
Oh, cool.
That we showed up. Mm-hmm. And I was reminded, like I had forgotten about
Please tell me you wore your skeleton outfit.
No, I did not wear that. But we're
missed opportunity.
We're on the set and we're going to film for the first day in Atlanta. And Billy had reminded me, and I think maybe Rob Garrison reminded Billy, but anyway, however it came about, Billy reminded me, he goes, you know, it's Halloween. I go, yeah, I'm aware of that. He said, that's when cameras first rolled on the first day of Karate Kid.
Oh, wow. Really?
So, yes. So on the very first day, so all these years later on the same day, the cameras were going to roll again on the same exact day, all those years later. So there's little things like that.
Yeah.
God, it's like almost magical, spiritual, beyond words. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe when you were coming from offset after Karate Kid released and you experienced the high in the sense like it was a hit, it was an absolute hit. And I know that you have a story about being in the theater when everybody, all your Cobras went and being around, but it was like, and you saw the reaction to everything. and then being able to utilize that high and keep going. Like, what was it like after that? Like, you had mentioned that, well, it was kind of hard because you weren't surrounded by the right people.
Yeah.
How disappointing was that, or how did you overcome that? And then, like, how did you get to where you started going a different direction? Because you stayed in acting, but then all of a sudden you decided, hey, I can make a difference in other people's lives too, and be an instructor, be a sensei, and get into writing a book and being a public speaker.
Yeah, it was tough. Initially, you know, it wasn't so tough, but as time went on, I'm like, wait a minute, this movie's a major thing. We're doing a sequel. It's a big deal, and my people aren't capitalizing on that in any way, at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was frustrating. I mean, Hollywood's a frustrating town.
100%. Did the other guys have the same situation? Were they kind of going through the same thing, or were
I,
you the only one who was experiencing this?
I think no. I think maybe all of us were kind of experiencing it. I know Ralph got kind of typecast as a Karate Kid, and I think that kind of frustrated him for a while. Billy got some work out of it. Certainly, Elizabeth Shue got
Mm-hmm.
some work out of it, and they had the right people at the right time. Billy was working regularly afterwards. He was I forgot what they called him of the '80s, the bad guy of the '80s, or
Yeah.
the '80s villain or whatever. Because he did a couple other movies and stuff where he was the bad guy.
Back to School. I remember that one.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but you're villain, and this is interesting because you're kind of the villain, but you're also the only good guy villain within it. You're the one who takes pity and takes service, and you're the one who confronts Sensei Kreese at the same time.
yeah, and that makes Bobby very unique in the entire brand. It makes him kind of stand out a little bit. And with, to this day, I have my own sort of following and fan base where they really identify with that character.
100%. I agree with that.
Because he had morals. He had a moral compass. He knew where to draw the line, and he was maybe mixed up in the wrong crowd, but he definitely wasn't afraid to stand up for what was right when it counted, like at the fence. Like, he's had enough. He was standing up to all his buddies. So Bobby's special in that regard, and I'm honored to play that role for sure. Kind of aligns with me as well.
I would say so, 100%. Knowing who you are and following you, so you after that and things started to fizzle and such. What brought you into starting your own dojo?
Well,
because the audience doesn't know that you were really the only black belt who was actually cast for it, right? And you had to keep that under wraps because you've told that story before. But it's like you actually were a shodan in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I was in Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I wasn't supposed to talk about it on the audition. At least Pat Johnson had recognized it at some, like, 6 weeks into filming and all this training and everything. Because you're a black belt, you can recognize the way a black belt moves versus the way a white belt moves. They just move differently. They posture differently. They have different balance, And Pat Johnson had recognized it, and he finally came up to me, and he said, "You know stuff, don't you?" And then I had to spill the beans. And then, of course, when it came time, you referenced the fight scenes, when I sweep the leg and stuff. That's all my stuff. That's jujitsu stuff. Because Pat let me choreograph my 2 fights in the montage sequence. Because he was so busy choreographing all these other fights, and all these extra martial artists had come in to do the All Valley Championships. He said, "Ron, take this guy and this guy, go choreograph 2 quick fight scenes, bring them back to me for approval." And so I put in the flying leg scissors, and I put in the leg sweep and stuff from jiu-jitsu, the moves that I've done in demonstrations and stuff like that. So,
see, so that's even more special because, and I had heard you say that, but it's like, it does bring a little bit of your heart and soul into the movie too. And maybe that is why you have that fan base that follows you, because they can relate to that and they see that. And I 100%, Honey Basami, I understand like your opponent clicking. It's like these little things that if you study, they really do stand out. And you did justice. You did justice to the show. And so did Pat as the ref. It was like, you brought a reality to it. And I think that also made people realize, like, ooh, if I am who I am and I want to be that, I can attain that. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, one of my favorite scenes is that when everybody's checking into the tournament and the tables are out there in the linoleum halls and such. And it's just like, that's how tournaments were in the 80s. I mean,
Right.
that is 100%. You could buy blowguns and ninja stars and stuff, but it's
Right.
like that, it brought such a reality to what it was really like in the 80s. And I think that that's also why it's timeless.
Yeah.
So I love that. You started your own dojo, and then you reached your Rokudan. Is that correct? Your sixth degree?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that was your question too, going back a little bit. So yeah, what made me start my dojo was actually I was out of work as an actor. I would do in the Conan, the Barbarian show up at Universal Studios. Also the Miami Vice live action. I played the role of Crockett. And so doing those shows up at Universal Studios, when they came time after a decade they decided to close that show and do something else in the theater. I found myself out of work, and I'm like, oh, all these years I'd had a job acting and staying in shape because the Conan show was very physical, and doing some martial arts in the show and playing young Conan. So then I'm like, okay, I didn't really ever want to open a dojo, but I found myself, I didn't really ever want to work wait tables either, So I had a group of students. Some were in the Conan show, some were friends of mine that I was training in my garage anyway, just working out. And then I decided I'm just going to open the dojo and go from there. So I had 3 of them up in the LA area.
Did you really? That's awesome. And obviously do you still train? Do you train with your daughter at all?
I tried training with her a little bit. She doesn't want to learn anything from dad.
Oh, same page. Yes.
No, but so I had her in a martial arts class. I tried a karate class. He was very good. Then I had her in a jiu-jitsu, a guy who's a judo jiu-jitsu guy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but he had a judo philosophy. He was also a judo guy, a very nice guy from Brazil. And I had her in that for a while. And then her love was really gymnastics. So we just stopped doing that and let her do what her heart told her she wanted to do. She's very good at gymnastics. She's a beast.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's a beast. I mean, really, like she's been doing round off back tucks since she was like 8 years old. So, and then also competitive soccer. She loves that. So we'll see.
Well, and I think you're a good dad because like you, I'm like, I don't want to press it on her. I don't force her to like Star Wars. I don't force her to put on a dogi or anything like that and train with me. And I think if she shows that interest, she will do it. And the interesting thing is like with Karate Kid, she was like interested immediately. And so we went into our dojo and she was like, can you show me a few things? And I showed her things when she was young. I really did. Like I wanted her to have hip coordination right at a very, very young age. Yeah. And we worked on things and it did come back pretty quick, And so I'm like, I hope that it sparks something with that. So maybe you have this new generation that you're going to spark, right? And one of them will be my daughter.
We'll see. I hope so. I had 2 things being a dad. There's 2 things I don't want for my daughter. I don't ever want her bullied, or worse, because she's a bully. And we I don't ever want her to be a victim of any kind of violence, anything like that. I want her to be able to take care of herself.
Absolutely.
And I never wanted her to be able to. I never want her to drown. I was a swimmer. I know what swimming has done for me. I'm not afraid of the water. I've done all these water sports simply because I enjoy the water. And so she's been in competitive swimming. She can swim all 4 strokes. I think she could be better at that. So I want to get her back in there. And in martial arts, I hope she comes back around to that simply because it takes training. You can't take a 6-week self-defense class and think you're going to be able to defend yourself on the street when it gets serious.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you even talk about that in your book about the intention, right? And like what you put behind the punch is totally different than what, if you're just swinging your arm, it's way different than if you're actually perceiving an opponent or you're running for your life, right? And it's like that power of intention is so important. And for her to be able to do that, whether that's in her gymnastics or not, but you can be your greatest cheerleader. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that you love to do that and you want to make sure that you're looking out for, but you also do that for so many other people too, because now you're an author and a published author, and you are also a keynote speaker like me. And it's like, you're making a difference in this world in a totally different platform. Did you ever see yourself writing a book or getting up on stage and talking?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. For sure. At some point, like I said, like is this through line that went all the way back to when I was 3 years old and how important mindset is. And then seeing how the difference that martial arts has made in people's lives, which is a lot of mindset and internal stuff, mind, body, and spirit development. And then knowing that a lot of people didn't want to come into the dojo and train. I used the joke that they like their nose right in the center of their face. They really want to keep it there. They don't want to know how to fight, but they want the life skills. They want the esoteric principles, the discipline, the confidence, the self-esteem, the honor, the respect, all of that stuff they want in their lives and for the people around them and their kids and everything. So I recognize there's an audience out there that wants to, they don't want to fight. They just take the fighting part out of it, but they want all this other stuff that the martial arts provides.
Absolutely.
And so I got some training in neurolinguistic programming, master practitioner. I got some training in timeline therapy and hypnosis, the subconscious behaviors of us human beings, and putting all that together as in becoming a life coach and a sensei and all the stuff out of the martial arts. And then why not? Yeah, there's a whole audience out there that wants that kind of stuff for their own.
You're an expert in that field. You have experience and you have that knowledge, and you obviously have stories to be able to share and give value to people. And so I think that you do have a message that resonates with people. Yeah. And your story's not over yet, right? And it's like, not at all.
Yeah. And the other thing that sparked me in that direction too was my students. Some of my students who had left the dojo, but several years later, they either hit me up on social media or on email, or they run into me and they just say, "Man, you changed my life."
Love that. Is that not the greatest feeling?
That's right. It is
the greatest feeling.
I was headed down a path. I don't know where I would have ended up, but because of you, I'm on a completely different path. And I want you to know what the difference is you made in my life. And it didn't just happen to me one time. It's that pass it on philosophy that I got from my sensei, and so every time it happens, that feeling of that's the best feeling is another reason why, I'm just going to write books. I'm going to post positive messages on social media. I'm going to go out there and talk and speak.
This is your No Mercy Mondays, right?
No Mercy Mondays. Yeah.
No Mercy Monday. Yeah. And you basically take that as like a life journal, and you're sharing that every Monday with people. Yeah.
It's kind of like when I used to teach in the dojo, what do I want to teach? I didn't have, it's like, what's present, what's happening, what's relevant right now? What do people need now? Whether that was martial arts techniques or whether that was some sort of mental, physical, the spiritual thing based on what was happening in our world, or, and so every Monday I'm like, what's happening right now? Either I'm talking to myself when I write those posts, like a lot of those posts are just reminders to me, and I just put them out there because I'm not the only person going through some of that, they're just reminders to other people saying, hey, you got any advice? I'm going through this right now. This has happened. What do I do next?
Well, and you have that ability to connect with people, right? Because you are whether it was you as a cast member, as the good guy and the bad guy, whether it's you as a keynote speaker, or whether it's you as a great dad or as a coach, right? And being able to share your swimming stories or your golfing stories. or being a karate instructor or a jujitsu instructor. And it's like, to be a sensei and to be able to pass that along with people is, you obviously have all that knowledge. And I think that draws people to you because you're that magnetic person. And when you experience that, is that one of the drives that keeps you going to write another book, to keep in acting, to take new students, to take on bigger and bigger audiences, the 500 tables versus the 5,000 tables in front of a stage? Like, what is the drive for you now?
Yeah, I think yes, all of that is the drive, like growth. There's something in us, all of us human beings. If we're not growing and developing, we're not, and we become stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned in the book,
Yeah.
We almost feel like we're dying, or at least we've died a spiritual death. I always
Mm-hmm.
say there's people walking around like zombies. They're just going through the motions of living. They've died a spiritual death, so to speak. So to feed our spirit, to feed why we're here on the planet, part of it is one major thing is creativity, right? We're here to create.
Mm-hmm.
We create families, we create kids, we create books, we create, and that's part of being alive, right? If we're not creating, we're not participating in that, but also growing. Like, if we're not better today than we were yesterday, then what the hell are we doing?
Yeah. And you mentioned that in the book. And I think your aha moment was with your dad, where you were talking about how he wanted to be creative. Like, that's where he found his purpose, is about, he couldn't sit and just be him, and it irked you. Right. But it was like, no, like, now you come to realize, as a parent too, you realize the sacrifice that they make, and all of the dreams that they're trying to pour into you. And it's like, wow, what is he doing for me? He's showing me this creative side.
Yeah, and being useful. Like, his thing was, I need to be useful. Like, I matter. If we're not being useful, which is part of it for me, right? When we go out there and we're helping change other people's lives, or we're giving them something, we say one sentence that they needed to hear that particular day that changes everything for them, because we know one thing can change everything.
Yes.
And so if we're part of that, then I feel like, of course, I'm being useful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my life matters. And of course, that was my dad too. He was so creative, but he needed to be useful. His saying was, I don't want to be a bump on the log. I want to help. I want to fix things, because he was a fixer. He was a carpenter. He was, an artist, and he would give his stuff away. That's what irked me. Like, he didn't have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and art is beautiful. I'm like, but he didn't have education either. He had an 8th grade education. He didn't know how to capitalize on his own talent,
Mm-hmm.
but he could have, because he was that talented. So,
but I think you're kind of following the parallel of, like, and maybe that's your aha moment with that, but it's like, as an author, you and I both can agree that it's like, we're not making $1 million off of a book. It's about being able to share a message, and who you can reach and share that message with, or bring value to. Right.
yeah.
And then also in acting, you had mentioned this in your book too. It's like, you could be making the most money and have the greatest job, and tomorrow it could dissolve right away. And so you can't count on that, especially in LA, and especially being in the acting world. And it's like, you have to be able to adapt and pivot and move along with those. But it's like, being able to realize that and have that parallel. So you're not making a lot of money in the acting. You're not making a lot of money as an author. And it's like, to be a speaker. Well, let me hit this. As a sensei, I did a nonprofit school in Seattle, and it was like, I was not making any money. It's like, there's no money to be made to teach. Right. And so we weren't making millions off of that. And it's about what I got was the value of helping the other people. And you had mentioned this also, it's about the give, right? And I'm more rich now because of my giving. And in your book, you basically talk the hidden life lessons of Mr. Miyagi right here. And you talk about how one of Miyagi's greatest things was just giving himself, whether that's fixing the bike for Daniel-san, or whether it was like teaching for him, or giving him a car, or even helping his mom out in times like the faucet. It's like, that's you too. And I think you're living that life. do you replay that movie in your mind and say, how do I become more like Miyagi was? Was that something that gave you inspiration, even if it's a fictitious mentor or a sensei?
Well, certainly when I was writing the book, I replayed the movie in my mind over and over again because I was digging into the consciousness of a master,
Mm-hmm.
Miyagi.
Mm-hmm.
Because the book, in my view, the book is about mastery. It's about self mastery and life mastery. And Miyagi was a master.
Mm-hmm.
And a master recognizes the value of giving. You just said it. You're on the path to mastery too. And of course, what true sensei isn't? At least, well, I should take that back. I know a lot of senseis who are not living
Sure.
the life of mastery. However, those who who really engage in what the martial arts is all about are on some kind of path of mastery. You just said that you're rich
Mm-hmm.
in other ways. Like we're not
Yes.
talking monetarily rich,
Yes.
but rich in being able to be in a position to help other people and to let them receive value. Also in terms of the movie and writing a book, whether it's your book, my book, you're putting something out there into the universe that's never going to go away.
Uh, well, and
So
it's an opportunity for your daughter to know who you are, what
yes,
you believed. And it was like the same with me. I wanted to pass on a legacy of the stories of my life and my experience of being bullied. Growing up with the name Blue was awful. Okay. And so like you, I got picked on. I know that you got hit upside the melon in high school, but it's like
yeah,
mine was in junior high.
yeah,
And it's like these bullying experiences and these stories, these life lessons that my karate instructor taught me, I wanted to pass that along. And I
yeah,
just started writing a life journal, and
yeah.
that became a book. And just like you kind of transferred that into your dojo, but then you also transferred it into your keynotes now.
Yeah, right. And this particular book was a challenge because I really uh, it connects me. I'm part of the movie. It
Mm-hmm.
connects my life as a martial artist. It connects my mindset, and my consciousness as an athlete going all the way back, but channeled through Miyagi and the real on-screen lessons that we all saw. Um, my idea for the book is okay. What's there for everybody, not just Daniel-san. It's not about karate. What's in that particular lesson, or what is it about Miyagi? What is it about that scene that's going deeper? What's hidden
Mm-hmm.
in the hidden life lessons of Mr. Miyagi? What's hidden that I can pull out and reveal to the world that they can use in their own lives? And if it's about mastery and life mastery, then giving, as we've talked about, Miyagi He gave the bonsai tree away.
Mm-hmm.
He gave of his talents and fixed Daniel's bike. He didn't ask for money in return. He could have used it. He just fixed it because he saw a kid who in need, and so a master recognizes those opportunities to give because they understand, like I mentioned in the book, both the giver and the receiver are receiving something. It's a
Well, it's a contraction expansion feel.
yeah, yeah,
And for me, when I realized that moment was when I was holding a pad one time, and our instructor had another kid punching. And after I'd punched, it was my turn to hold the pad, and he was punching and punching, and I was just kind of like dozing off, and my instructor stopped class. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Well, I'm just holding the pad." And he goes, "No, you should be learning just as much as he is right now, in short form." And it was like I was learning how to take a punch, how to breathe correctly, how to look for telltales, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I've been training my life totally wrong," right? And it's like when you can see different perspectives and two different routes, I think that's imperative. And I love that you're taking. Everyone sees Daniel, okay, that's the star, that's the person that I've got to learn from him and Mr. Miyagi. But it's like there are underlying lessons you can learn just
yeah.
as much from a bad example as you can a good example. And I think that's that whole coming back with Sensei Kreese and with Billy, because I love the scene in Cobra Kai. I don't remember what season. It might have been the second one, when Billy turns to his student and he's like, "Man, Daniel came here and he took my girlfriend and he embarrassed me at the dance." And at the end, you're like, man, Daniel's a bad guy. Like you really are thinking like it's a totally different perspective, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
I think that hits home because you can take messages that somebody might see that you can see and then learn from those lessons. And I think you did an outstanding job in that book and also with your speaking business too.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you go from you start your dojo and then you get into writing and you're writing your lessons and such. And it's like, how did you know that you kind of had a hit with this? Like what was your experience of writing the book after you had these ideas, you transform them, and it's like, oh, I have enough here that's going to translate into a different form for me to be able to share.
Yeah. I didn't know, and I don't know if the book's gonna be a hit. But it was something I had to write, and it was like I said, it was challenging because I'm not writing from Sensei Ron's. I'm writing from it's my stuff. I'm writing
Sure.
from my perspective, obviously, but my baseline starting point for each chapter, which is our standalone life lessons, right? You could read chapter 7 and read chapter 3 next. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go through the flow of the book. They're standalone, but each lesson the baseline was what happened on the screen of Karate Kid, the lesson of Miyagi there, and what's hidden in that. And then I could start to my own stream of consciousness start to write, from that lesson and my perspective on what was hidden that we didn't see in the movie, but we can see it now in my book and we can use it. And so it was a bit of a challenge, really. But fun to write. I'm so glad it's done because writing a book is no joke. It's a lot of work. Congrats to you for writing yours. Because
Well, it was funny because I connected with you and
oh,
I was
yeah.
like, hey, Yuji and I were just having a conversation. We started talking about you. And I was like, oh, I should send him my book. And I was like, hey, have you read it? And you're like, I'm in the middle of writing my own book. And it's like, no one understands the time that it takes to actually write a book.
Yeah, and rewrite it and edit it, throw this, and then rewrite it again.
Yes.
Oh, it was a lot of work. Um, but at some point, I just had to stop and say, okay, this is good. It's good enough. Let it.
Well, and I think that's in life, right? Like it's never the best time to plant the tree is right now. It would have been 20 years ago, but right now is the next best time for you to do that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I love that you had mentioned this, and that is that you're able to look back and play the movie over and over and take the little nuggets and things. And I think that the value of that is because you talked earlier about always learning and having self-development and never stop learning and consistently like improving yourself and your skill set, not staying stagnant, right? And it's like, just because you can look back at the past doesn't mean you're staying stagnant. It's like, what can you learn from how you acted? What can you learn from that Monday night quarterback move, right? Like, what can you take from that? And I think that's great because you did that with your entire life, but you also did it from the movie's perspective.
True. Yeah, because if we're not learning, right, if we're not growing and using our past experience, even the experiences that we don't we'd rather forget, we'd rather I made that mistake.
Yeah.
I hate myself for doing that, but we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. And if the only mistake in life is to not learn from your mistakes, right? There's no failure, only feedback, to use neurolinguistic programming language. And if you're not taking the feedback from your failures, what are you
doing?
What are you doing? What's the purpose of it? Of course, you got to take the feedback. You got to use life as your life coach. Sometimes you got to use your daughter as your life coach. Your daughter will show you your stuff.
Oh, 100%. I've used her in my speeches before, and I've announced publicly that I learned from a 9-year-old. I'm like, here we go. 100%.
Oh, yeah. They'll show you all your stuff immediately. And you better, if you're a conscious parent, you'll learn from your own kid.
Not only conscious, but involved and engaged with your child. Totally. And they tell you everything if you listen, right? And you're like, "Ooh, I'm learning things here for sure."
For sure. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's tough, man. Parenting. I wrote the book, because you can see back here. Positive Thinking is for Sissies, right? This is an older book that I wrote a long time ago. Positive Thinking is for Sissies. I didn't say positive thinking is a bad thing. I'm just saying, mastery is for warriors. That's
Sure.
what Miyagi's about. The Hidden Life Lessons of Mr. Miyagi. Positive thinking is for sissies because it's fluff. It's like, you can be a positive thinker and still be broke. You can be a positive thinker and still be going through a diagnosis or a divorce. Positive thinking, it's like, oh, there's a silver lining in every cloud. Yeah, so what? Mastery makes you hold a mirror up to yourself and own your crap.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it's really for warriors. And so
well, and I love you mentioned that in the book as well, but it's like you had earlier said that like in the LA district, you weren't surrounded by the right people. You didn't have this confidence team that supported you and brought you up, right? And like pushed you to the more castings or better directors or more movies. And it's like when you have these stories that can do that for you, it's like that's impressive to be able to pass that along.
sure.
And even if it's the positive mindset is one thing, and being able to take that intent and actually apply it is a whole different ball game.
Whole another thing. It requires intent. It requires intention and being learning and moving down the path of mastery. That takes the heart of a warrior. You can sit back and think positive all you want and feel good in the moment about your positive thoughts.
Yeah, but you can fail. It is okay to fail, but then also that's where I was going is that you have this confidence team that reminds you that it's like, it's okay to fail. And I've already made that mistake, so learn from it. And that is one of the greatest things about you, Sensei Ron, is that you're teaching people mistakes you have made. This book is full of like, and you own it. You're like, I don't know everything. You're not going to agree with everything that I say. And my experience is going to be different than your experience. But if I can reach one or more of you, then I've done my job.
Exactly. Yeah. If you can, I say it. You'll read this book. You're not going to agree with everything I say in the book, but you might agree with one thing. One thing in there is going to resonate with you that might change everything for you. So pay attention.
Well, and it is full of nuggets, and we're going to definitely tell everybody. I mean, it's the Hidden Life Lessons of Mr. Miyagi. And it is, I'm already 75% through it, and I love it. And I love that you mentioned that it only takes, I mean, it's timeless because you can look at any chapter and you can just open it up and go right in it. There's no chronological order.
Right.
But I also would suggest that it's not a quick read either. Like you can make it a quick read, but it's like, if you put thought and intent behind what you're listening to or reading out loud, there really is so much in that book. To take advantage of.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that feedback. I appreciate that. It's because the book does not release worldwide from my publisher until December 3rd.
Okay.
But I have a bunch of them, and I'm signing them and sending them out. I've sent them out across the world, so I haven't heard too much feedback from anybody really yet. But
you're going to get a Google review. Hold on, I'll get on that immediately.
I appreciate that.
100%.
Yeah, and I'll take the negative feedback too. But like I told William Christopher Ford, he said, and he loved the first chapter about giving because he's a giver.
Mm-hmm.
He said, man, that first chapter is just worth the price of admission or something like that. I said, God, keep the feedback coming, even if it's negative. I said, but I'm not going to go back and rewrite the book. If it's negative. So,
I'm in the middle of doing the Audible right now, and I've found, I think, 5 errors for the sum of 4. And I'm like, how did I miss this? And how did my editor miss this? How did the publisher miss this? But it happens. We're human beings, and we're going to make mistakes. But I'm not taking the book back. I'm not rewriting the entire book.
Heck no.
I love that. When I do have a question for you about Karate Kid. When you were filming, and a lot of people who aren't in the film industry might not know this, but it's like, you're not there every day. You're not in every scene. And so it's like, did you know the entire story and the timeline of everything before you watched the movie the first time?
Pretty much. We had, of course, it's all in the script, and we get the rewrites every single day and all of that stuff. I would say we were there 95% of the time, because if we weren't filming, we were still training. We were still doing karate with Pat Johnson. We still had karate sessions and stunt fighting choreography to work out. and soccer training we had for a while, motorcycle riding, all that stuff.
I love that story where a lot of this is funny, but when you land a gig for like a commercial or a movie, it's like they bring specialists and experts in to train you all the time. Like whether you're working with tools, they'll bring somebody in from Still Saw or something like that and show you how to do it.
For sure. And they brought
that with the motorcycles too.
Yeah, totally. That's a great story about the motorcycles. But they brought a guy in who, played with Pele to train us for soccer. I mean, that was Jerry Weintraub, just get the best of the best, There's a funny story about the motorcycles I'll tell real fast. That John Alvinson didn't think that we could all ride very well together as a group. So on a Sunday, which back then was called Golden Time, and that means
pay-wise,
Golden, we were getting paid triple on a Sunday at the Columbia Ranch where they shot all this stuff back in the day. Fantasy Island set as example, which we kind of tore up with our spinning donuts on the Fantasy Island set.
Getting paid to have fun. Okay.
Yeah. At one point, Alan Alney, who is the stunt coordinator, he said, "Yeah, you guys can ride. Just go have fun. We've got another couple hours here. Just go play." And so we took those bikes and we were riding all over these sets on the Columbia Ranch. And we rode up these old Western sets with the wooden planks, and we rode our bikes into the saloons of these old Western saloons. Come out. We were just,
you're being kids.
Yeah. But being kids, there was nobody there filming. It was a Sunday. It was just our Columbia. It was so much fun.
Was there any repercussion from that? Did anybody find out, or did you guys tell on each other?
Nobody found out. John Alvinson found out years later, I think, when I mentioned it on the stage when I was doing a panel. And John was in the panel, and I actually said, I don't think John knows this. I'll spill the beans now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you still have, like, when you hear songs from the original score or soundtrack, does it inspire you? Do you work out to "You're the Best"? What do you do?
No, I don't. Of course, it just links you back. So when you hear "Cruel Summer" or "Best Around" or whatever, it takes you back to the day. But no, I don't work out to the stuff
Oh, that's funny. When my daughter watched it, she was like, "He's riding a bike to school. Did they do that?" I go, "Yeah, he used to do that. I know some people still do that. I'm sure."
That's funny.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So if I was to ask you what the one thing is that you would tell your past self or someone listening that you wanted everyone to take away from what we talked about today, what would that one thing be about overcoming or navigating their no?
Well, I don't know if we got too much into navigating no, but maybe a little bit. But look, Hollywood is a place of no's. So I understand, I get navigating no, and life is full of no's. And I would sit my former self down, my younger self, and have a little chat about, life is handing you no's every day. We talked about my hair. Right?
Yeah.
Well, being an actor, I think losing your hair or having your hair thin is traumatizing for anybody, man or woman. But when you're an actor, it's that much more traumatizing, trust me, because you're under a microscope in Hollywood. That was a no from life. That was
Absolutely.
a no from my body saying, no, so I had to figure out, okay, at some point, I'll do what everybody else does and shave my head and take on that look. And then actually, people actually loved it when I did it. And I was working out in my dojo and I was sweating. And I had my students come up to me, "Man, that your new look with the shaved head, I had one guy say, "It looks hard. You look hard," and I'm like, okay, but that's a no, right? There's no's come in many forms, not just from someone else or some other company if you're an entrepreneur, but so you have to learn to navigate life. Life is handing us no's all the time. And so I would say this, the one thing I've learned about no and living life is that you probably have the same thing. When you put a book out there, you expose yourself. When you're an actor, you expose yourself to criticism. And when you put a book out there, you expose yourself to criticism. I'm not expecting everybody to love my book. I said it. But the thing about that is I don't, somewhere along the lines, I've learned to, it's not that I don't care, and that's not the right words, but it doesn't affect me that much
So
when
why?
somebody doesn't like me.
Why is that? Is that a perspective change? Is it a mindset? Like, why is it that doesn't let you go down some kind of rabbit hole that you become the victim and you become resentful and angry that leads to the dark side, as I would say it, right? What is the thing that keeps you from going down there?
It's identity. It's your identity. You have to have a solid identity and be able to stand in your truth. My truth might not be someone else's truth, but my truth is my truth. I know who I am. I know I have a moral compass. I know I have ethics and values. I know I'm not perfect, but I have an identity that I'm solid in. When people are wavering in who they are
Yeah.
and what they're about and their identity, then a no can mean rejection, means massive rejection. It might not mean they rejected you. You know, you're an actor, you go on an audition, they might love you.
Mm-hmm.
I auditioned for 21 Jump Street
Mm-hmm.
11 times in one season.
For different parts or the same part? They had
no,
to keep them
different episodes.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to cast me. They were looking for reasons to cast me. The producers loved me. They brought me in constantly. Oh, let's try. And I never appeared on that show. I got no's every time, but it wasn't a rejection of me because they wouldn't have brought me back if it was, right?
Sure.
It was just they didn't see me fitting into the part perfectly or whatever the thing is. But you have to be able to be detached from that. You know, when I work with athletes and I'm coaching athletes, the identity thing is really important. You know, if Tiger Woods loses a golf tournament, that says nothing about who he is. It
Sure.
says nothing about his identity and what he's done and who he is as a golfer. And so he loses a golf tournament. He doesn't like freak out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He just goes to work, right? People like Tiger Woods, they go to work. But you know, if you get a lot of no's and then you better, maybe you got to figure out, look at yourself from a different perspective. What is it? What are the mistakes I'm making? Why aren't people connecting me? What am I doing wrong? It says nothing about who I am.
And it might not be you at all.
Right. It might not be me at all, but if it is, let me fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me change something. But that doesn't shake my identity. It doesn't make me go, I don't know who I am anymore.
Sure.
And I feel so rejected and people hate me. And
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's what I would say to my younger self is, look, you're a good person. You know who you are, and you're going to learn more about who you are and take it all on and build your identity and stand in your truth. And don't think that that's permanent. Your truth can change, your identity can change and evolve and grow, and it will, because that's what life is about. Don't stay 17.
Yeah.
You know, as you grow, add more to who you are and just build this solid, unshakable identity that when you're told no, it doesn't say anything about who you are. It might say something about what you need to do to change to help other people receive you better. I don't know. It may or may not, you know?
Well, and I think you hit home with that, not only what you're saying, but also in the book, is that it's like you have to be better tomorrow than you are today.
Yeah.
And that means maybe you are changing, but as long as you stay true to yourself and your authentic self, let's throw that buzzword out, that it's like, that is who you are, and people know who you are. And I think that's also why you have such a following as well. And your character and your personality and your speaking business is like, people are drawn to that because you are who you are, and you are that. You're a real dad. You're a real guy who has gone through Hollywood, given up a chance to everything, taken risks, was on the high life, got hit back down, and then you start another thing. But the entire journey, you're not only growing, but you're making a difference in this world and making impact on people. Yeah. And that is an honorable thing, Sensei. Yeah. That is a mastery right there.
I appreciate that. And, you know, in Hollywood, they say you got to have 99 no's to get to that one yes, you know, mm-hmm. and I think it might be true in life as well. And you got to be able to navigate yes. as well as you can navigate no, so
Well, yeah, you landed one of the biggest roles ever. I do have one question. Did you try out for Daniel LaRusso's part, or was that already cast? And did you
uh,
know?
no, I didn't try out for Daniel LaRusso's part. Like, they wanted blonde hair, blue eyed, California look, all American look guys for Cobra Kai because Daniel was, coming from New York. I think Charlie Sheen was up there for being in consideration. But I did read initially for Johnny,
Oh,
Billy
interesting.
Zabka's part. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
So,
you guys have had that friendship forever. And you guys
yeah.
you literally are like brothers, like, because you went through this time. People always ask me, they're like, because I've lived all over the world, and people are like, is it hard for you to make new friends? And I'm like, it is hard to make real, true core friends. The people that you experience things as a kid and that you go through, like somebody out on your first date with, or somebody that you can brainstorm with and just go through all of these like growing pains together. And I think it's fantastic that that you guys have stayed so together, I guess to say. And it's like,
Well,
that's awesome.
we created something special together, and Billy wrote the forward in my book.
Yes. Yeah, he did. Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for other people to read this because, and like you had mentioned, that it's going to come out on December 3rd of this year, of coming out. So can you tell us more, if people want to find out more about you, and where the best place for them to get your book is and platforms?
Yeah. Listen, the best place to get it right now is through me at my website, senseironthomas.com
Mm-hmm.
/shop. Just go to the products page, and there's a whole list of products. You can get, signed autographed photos from Karate Kid or Cobra Kai or whatever. But the book is there, and I'll sign it. And you can't do that unless you're in the future, unless you see me at a Comic-Con or a book signing event or something like that. But I've already signed a bunch and shipped them out around the world. So if you want to grab one autographed or not autographed, you have your option at my website, senseironthomas.com. That's right now, because I got a bunch of these sitting in my garage.
Well, and I hear you there. And you autograph mine, and you use a Sharpie, something very, very well, by the way. But I am so excited to finish this. Where can people actually connect with you? And is that also senseironthomas.com, or is that through some kind of other platform?
Yeah, senseironthomas.com. I think a lot of people connect with me on Facebook, which is /Sensei Ron Thomas. Also Instagram, which is at the real Ron Thomas. So those two platforms are, in terms of social media, are the main ones that I use and connect with.
Okay.
And YouTube. YouTube is /Sensei Ron Thomas. I really got to sit down and create more videos and stuff like that.
It's hard though, and you talk about navigating something. You navigate being a good parent, being a professional, being a speaker, being an author, and it's like, how much time do you have, right? And it's like, it is very, very rough. And if you talk about navigating some kind of like loss or failure, it's like your time, because you only have so much time. And I think you've even mentioned that. It's like, we're only given so much, and it's like, what are we going to do with that time? And I can say, man, I need to post this or SEO this so much more. And it's like, you're just a good dad. And I think, and I look up to that, by the way.
I appreciate it. Same as back at you. I look up to people who are good dads and want to be better dads, and because our children are our future and they're important. They're our legacy.
100% on that. Their currency. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your message today, and even these little, and I know that you mentioned, like, we didn't really navigate no, but believe it or not, I guarantee you went through a lot of no's through your life and through all these little stories that we talked about. So it has been an absolute pleasure. And I tell the audience, get this book, because at 75% through, it's already dog-eared several places, and I have lots of notes. So awesome. I will certainly give you positive feedback on all the things that I've, and I think that parallel of our lives of martial arts and in acting and being a dad and coaching, and obviously now keynote speaking. So it's going to be my goal now, since we're on, to be on stage with you and to be at an event with you.
That would be awesome. We definitely got to do that.
We will. That's a pledge.
I will get to your book. I promise. It's sitting here on my bookshelf.
I love it. Well, thank you again so much for coming on and being a part of my life and making an impact on me and now my daughter. And I know the fan base that you have, you are continuing to make an impact and make a difference in this world, Sensei Ron. And I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you as well.
Well, it's good to know you. And I look forward to building this connection, mister. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, man.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. Since this is a brand new podcast, we'd love your help to make it even better. So, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.